Gratitude's where it's at. You want to heal something faster? Find something to be grateful for. Some part of the right now to be grateful for. And I'm not talking to make lemonade. I'm saying that there is good in your past that got you to here, where here can also be good. May I suggest? I'm going to read some things that I think are funny. You do too. Somebody sent me these the other day, and they're complaints to the Thomas Cook travel people about travelers' complaints that like, wow, somebody forgot to be sane today. Says, on my holiday to go in India, I was disgusted to find out that almost every restaurant served curry. I don't like spicy food. They should not allow topless sunbathing on the beach. It was very distracting for my husband, who just wanted to relax. We went on holiday to Spain and had a problem with the taxi drivers as they were all Spanish. We booked an excursion to a water park, but no one told us we had to bring our own swimsuits and towels. We assumed they would be included in the price. The beach was too sandy. We had to clean everything when we returned to our room. The sandy beach. We found that the sand was not like the sand in the brochure. Your brochure shows the sand is white, but it was more yellow. It's lazy of the local shopkeepers in Puerto Vallarta to close in the afternoons. I often needed to buy things during siesta time. This should be banned. No one told us there would be fish in the water. The children were scared. Although the brochure said that there was a fully equipped kitchen, there was no egg slicer in the drawers. I think it should be explained in the brochure that the local convenience store does not sell proper biscuits like custard creams or ginger nuts. The roads were uneven and bumpy, so we could not read the local guidebook during the bus ride to the resort. Because of this, we were unaware of many things that would have made our holiday more fun. It took us 9 hours to fly home from Jamaica to England. It took the Americans only 3 hours to get home. This seems unfair. I compared the size of our one-bedroom suite to our friend's 3-bedroom, and ours was significantly smaller. When we were in Spain, there were just too many Spanish people there. The receptionist spoke Spanish. The food was Spanish. No one told us there were so many foreigners. We had to line up outside to catch the boat, and there was no air conditioning. I was bitten by a mosquito. The brochure did not mention mosquitoes. Finally, my fiancé and I requested twin beds when we booked, but instead we were placed in a room with a king bed. We now hold you responsible and want to be reimbursed for the fact that I became pregnant. This would not have happened if you had put us in the room we booked. May I suggest we look for the complaints we have in life, the crazy complaints we have in life, so that we'll stop doing them. That we think twice before we speak. That we look at our lives and at the world. For some of us, for how spoiled some of us have become, the expectations, I'm one of them. The expectations I sometimes have in the world, that like, how could you not? It's like, really, Shawn? Really, Shawn? Luxury problem. And it doesn't mean I should settle for a lot less, but I really need to look at the world before I complain, before I criticize. I need to look at myself before I complain, before I criticize. I need to acknowledge the God self in me before I start criticizing me, before I start taking on guilt that I'm not enough. I forget who I was talking to yesterday or the day before, about they were having regrets about their life. I said, but it couldn't have been different. Your life could not have been different than it was. You had no tools. You had no thoughts to make it different. That was my saving grace. And it happened a lot of years ago. I was going to quit smoking, and I realized, oh, I had to smoke all these years because I had no other tools. I had no way to get through till now. But now I have other tools. Now I have an alternative way of thinking. So I let the cigarettes know I wasn't going to be using them. We actually gave them 2 more months to have a party. And then I said, but I'm going to be putting you down on New Year's Day. And thank you. And I started to thank my whole past. I began to thank my whole entire past. I blessed my whole past. I blessed my parents and what they did. I blessed everything because I know the facts of what they did. I do not know the underlying causes other than insanity. Because who but an insane person would want to hurt me?
Yeah.
I was horrible. And so you guys were adorable. Who would want to hurt you? Nobody wants to hurt any single one of us. But when we forget, we hurt each other, we hurt ourselves. And in order to forget that, we continue the hurt until we remember. Until we remember. And for me, what I had to do was break the pattern of hurting in my family, and the way to do that was to begin to bless. To bless all the experiences that got us here. And it may seem difficult for some of us to do that. How can I bless that? Well, for me, it was my path to survival. It was the only way to wake up not hating people anymore, not hating myself for having been there. Yeah, some children have grown into adults hating themselves because they were there at that time. Even though we don't understand any of it, we really cannot define it. We just know it happened, and I felt this way about it. Right now I feel this way about it. But am I bad right now? Is my life bad right now? And for me, it wasn't. Such advances had taken place in my life experience that I could say, oh, it took all that to get here. That doesn't mean I throw away empathy for others who haven't gotten to that point yet. But at the same time, I only hurt them by feeling sorry for them, by pitying someone who's struggling. It's one thing to see a person's pain. It's one thing to acknowledge it. It's another thing to say, oh, you poor thing. That's not a blessing. You poor thing, or that poor thing, is not a blessing. Unless you're from the South. It's to look at it and say, wait a minute, they can't afford for me to feel sorry for them right now. That will only make it worse for both of us. They cannot afford it. I had a good acquaintance, we'll call her. She was a minister, she was studying to be a minister at Unity Village. She was in the full-time seminary program. And she had been training for the Olympics several years before. And she had a car accident that left her paralyzed. Stop, it's her story. I haven't gotten to be with yet. Jiminy crickets. Pay attention to that. So, she's paralyzed. She's in the hospital. Doesn't know if she's ever going to walk again. And her coach comes in and says to her, do you want to walk? And she said, well, I guess, but how could I? He said, do you want to walk? Well, of course, who wouldn't? He said, do you want to walk? And she heard him, and she said, remember, he's her coach. And she said, yes, I do. He said, fine, here's what we're going to do. No one is allowed in this room that doesn't talk about you walking again. Not a friend, not a nurse, not a family member, not a doctor. No one gets to come in here and talk about anything but you walking again. If they start to talk about you, poor thing, they have to go. She said, okay, she's a pretty resilient person. So that's what began to happen. And that's what began to happen. And that's what began to happen. And the influence of that, when I met her, she had x-rays that from her spine that said she can't walk. But I saw her running around Unity Village in high heels. She's a fully functioning minister today. She's tough. She's a tough one. She wrote a book about it. And so it tells me the power of blessing. What do you want? Does it matter that there is no logic to how you could heal? Does it matter that there is no medical evidence to say that you could have abundant health? No, it doesn't matter, quite frankly. The doctors are not the boss of me. My mother is not the boss of me. Adam and Eve are not the boss of me. Pharaoh is not the boss of me. You are not the boss of me, and I'm not the boss of you. I get to be the guide here, and let me tell you why. Because you guys said so. You know, you put a phone call into a church in the city and said, we're looking for a guide, a minister. And I answered the call. And here I am. That's why I'm the guide who gets to stand up here with a microphone. Because you guys said, okay, what the heck? Let's give him a shot. So far it's working out. And, but I'm not the boss. You see, I'm not calling any of you this afternoon to see how you have applied this talk today. Not a single, I promise. You're doing it yet? You're doing it yet? What about you? 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 People, come on. I can only have so many hands. I can't make all these phone calls. No. I get to guide. What I have to do after this is hold the community in light, whilst knowing I'm a part of the community that has to be held in light. And some days it's easier than other days. But to bless, to bless, to bless. I'm going to give you the definition of bless, and I want to read it. Just Fillmore wrote it. Power of blessing. Blessing imparts the quickening. I love words like quickening. Blessing imparts the quickening spiritual power that produces growth and increase. It is the power of multiplication. And someone else said, the only way to investigate the power of blessing, listen up everybody, here's the key. The only way to investigate the power of blessing is to try it for ourselves. You say, I can manifest all over the place, but that does not help you to manifest. Except to know, then you get say, well, Shawn could do it, and look at the mess he was. So maybe I can. That's what I've done with some of you. Look at the mess they were, and if they can do it, I can do it. When I entered my sobriety healing, I'll tell you, I met people. I was shocked at business people, had suits, women in beautiful dresses and things, jewelry. People had money. People had good skin, and they were happy, they were healthy, their hair smelled nice. And then I'd hear these stories from 6 years ago at crack dens and all sorts of just awful stuff. I thought, wait a minute, look at you now, and you're telling me that's what you were then. What did you do? And every single one of them said, I prayed. I prayed differently, and I paid attention to the people whose lives had gotten better before me. And I asked them what they did. Well, they say stick with the winners. And so I found the people whose lives I wanted. And I did bless the people whose lives I did not want, but I didn't hang out with them. I looked for the ones who were having lives that were not so happy. It says I wanted the blessings they had given to themselves, and I wanted to give myself the same blessings. Blessings are the power of multiplication. So to go on here, what do we mean by blessing? To bless is to invoke good upon, to call forth the action of God, to confer God's good on something or someone. Now I want to be clear on that. The point is, a blessing is not so now I can finally get something. That's not a blessing, no, that's a manipulation. As I say, affirmations are prayers, they are not incantations. Now I can get my car, now I can get cash, now I can get the prizes. The prizes are here. We do want to make space for them in our lives, but we want to know what to do with the prizes. And there's where the blessing comes in. Blessing is a part of mind. Blessing is a part of divine mind and the awareness of the connection to source. All healing comes as a result of the awareness of the connection to source. And so therefore, our main objective is not the healing. Our objective is the connection, the conscious connection to source. We cannot be disconnected from source. I want to be very clear on this. We cannot be disconnected from source. But we can be unaware of it. And in the unawareness is where our words go awry, where our thoughts and our words go crazy, saying things that just aren't true about ourselves, about others, about our planet, about our world, about our government, about our food, about so much. We go off on tangents of misery. And that is not the way we want to bless our lives. So, in the sight of man, does anyone deserve full forgiveness? Because forgiveness is a blessing. And it says, in the sight of man, no one deserves it. It's interesting to read that. In the sight of man, none of us deserve forgiveness, because we've all fallen short of uniformly expressing perfect love. But all are forgiven, not by God, but in God. Because God is divine love in perfect expression. At least those who desire to experience what divine forgiveness is. When I came into unity the first time, I realized, I have been forgiven by God in that I have never been judged by God. God has never looked at me and thought I was bad. God has never looked at anyone in this building and thought they were bad. And God has never looked at the people I'm afraid of or that I hate and thought they were bad. And God has never looked at the people who have hurt me and thought they were bad. And I was so relieved. I was so incredibly relieved, because I was set free from thinking justice had to happen, that they somehow had to pay a price for what they did to me, and better yet, that I somehow had to pay a price for what I had done to myself or others. I was so relieved that in God, in truth, in wisdom, in intelligence, I didn't know anything. There was not a debt to be paid. It was only amongst us that there were debts to be paid, hence then amends process, restitution for things stolen, acknowledgement for where hurts had been made. That's what I had to do here. Not so that others would forgive me, but so that I would no longer think of myself as a liar, as a thief, as a whatever, as someone less than worthy of the divine kingdom. I wanted to know myself as worthy of the kingdom. I knew that whatever it is we call God, that principle, already saw me as worthy, but I wanted to get on board with that and align with it. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
And that's why we each have individual consciousness to say, where am I not yet willing to be on board? And where would I like to be willing to be on board? And where am I already on board? Find your starting off point, and then simple steps. Easy steps. Because none of it has to be hard. We don't get points in spirit for it being difficult. Struggle does not give us extra credit. Exhaustion does not give us extra credit. Love gives us extra credit. Willingness to do it in spirit gives us extra credit. Extra credit meaning I get to peace that much faster. I get to experience joy that much faster. Fixing you does not give me extra credit. In fact, it holds me back. Because the problem with fixing you is I see you as broken. That doesn't help either of us, because I see you broken, I'm broken, because we're the same. And so, to know, as you said, Brian, I know he's got his God and everything. Nevertheless, what can I do? If we're all connected, then we have to see ourselves as one with God, and then see our loved ones, and see the ones we hate as one with God. Nobody gets to be left out of the prayer circle. I know how hard it is, believe me. I have a few I'm holding out. I'm not yet bringing into the kingdom. And the problem is I'm standing outside the kingdom while not letting them in. I don't get to enter the kingdom until I let everybody in. You know, I'm not going to name names in this world. Not on this pulpit. I don't get up and do that. I don't name names of individuals in the world who are giving us every opportunity to learn forgiveness. Giving us every opportunity to learn love. But the thing is, these are just new names. I've got a list of names from the time I was born. You know, I worked my way through those ones. Now I've got these ones. How are they different? How are they different? I had to laugh that May Rowland, who headed up Silent Unity back in the 70s. She came into Unity, I think, in the 30s. But at some point she wrote a pamphlet talking about the horrible state of affairs in the world and how hard they were, and how will we ever heal from these? Sounds like she could have written it last week from what people are looking at. So it tells me, read your Bible if you want to know about the horrible state of affairs in the world. Really, read your Bible. They're just killing each other right and left. Yeah, read your Bible. It's very inspiring. So, gotta move on here. Sowing the seeds. Words are creative. What are your words? And I don't say that so you can have guilt if you haven't used the right word. Catch yourself and say, are those the words that I think will create more love, more abundance, more health, more harmony, cash? Are these the words to use to create what it is I want to create? And you might weep and say, but I don't want to give up these words. How will I have my feelings if I give up these inaccurate descriptions of the conditions of my life? Then what will I do with that thing? Well, find out. Find out. But keep asking yourself, do I want to be right about this? Do I want to be right? I think this is awful. Do I want to be right about that? And one would assume you'd say, no, I don't want to be right about this. And then you say, okay, then Spirit, what is happening here? What is the truth about this? Give me light. Put light on this, put light on this, put light on this. We've all proven it. Everyone in this room has proven before. With the light, they have seen the truth. By knowing the truth, they have been set free, at least for a moment. How do I know that? You're here. You've had experiences where you have been set free from limited thinking, from limited thinking. And so the talk today is called The Power to Bless. The power. It's not that God has the power to bless me. It's that I have the power to bless me. I've already been blessed by God. All beings have already been blessed by God. And so now I have the power to bless. I am so powerful. I can bless my life. I can bless my neighbor's home. And I don't have to like my neighbor's behavior to do it. I'm going to tell you something. The more I practice blessing in light and love, the less angry I'm going to be. The more I bless in light and love, the healthier I'm going to be. The more I bless in light and love, the wealthier I'm going to be. We all have a different version of wealth. The more I bless in light and love, my life, my body, my neighbors, the very ground I walk upon, my past. I don't have to understand it to bless it. I just have to become willing to know that God was always in it. God did not see it as bad. God does not see it as bad now. And then the mental healing begins. The physical healing begins. And I become a practitioner of light. And I start to see light where before I saw darkness. It's a really cool thing. I am sitting on the power to bless. It's in every fiber of my being. And all I have to do is rethink everything. And so with that, I say thank you and congratulations.